The text came in at 6:32 p.m. on March the 15th, 2024, our 10th wedding anniversary. I'm stuck at work. Big deadline. I'm so sorry, babe. Happy 10th anniversary. I'll make it up to you this weekend. Love you. 3 heart emojis. A kiss face emoji. The digital shorthand of a woman who had been lying to me for 14 months and had gotten so comfortable with it that she could decorate her lies with little cartoon hearts. I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot of Bastion's, a French-American restaurant on East Carey Street in Richmond's Shockoe Bottom, wearing the charcoal suit I'd bought 3 days ago specifically for tonight. Not at Nordstrom, not at some fancy place, at a consignment shop on Broad Street because master electricians don't have Nordstrom budgets, but a man's 10th wedding anniversary only happens once, and I wanted to look like I understood that. I had flowers on the passenger seat, stargazer lilies, Paige's favorite, the ones she'd carried at our wedding, the ones I'd had delivered to her office every March 15th for 10 years. This year, I picked them up in person because I wanted to hand them to her at the table, watch her face, see if she still looked at me the way she did when she was 29 and I was 32 and we were standing in a church in Churchill, promising each other forever. I read the text again. Stuck at work. I almost drove home. Almost called Knox to see if he wanted to grab a beer. Almost let another evening disappear into the routine of a man whose wife was always busy, always working late, always just out of reach. But I'd already paid for the reservation, non-refundable deposit, $80, which mattered when you ran a small electrical contracting business and $80 was $80. So, I figured I'd go in, eat a nice dinner alone, drink a glass of something expensive, and toast 10 years of marriage by myself. That decision, the decision to walk into that restaurant instead of driving home, is the reason I'm telling you this story today. I walked into Bastion's at 8:10 p.m. The hostess seated me at a small table near the back, next to a window that overlooked the alley, which wasn't exactly romantic but suited a man eating alone on his anniversary. I ordered a glass of Bordeaux. I set the lilies on the empty chair across from me. I picked up the menu, and then I looked up across the restaurant, partially hidden behind a decorative wooden screen that separated the main dining room from a more intimate section in the corner. I saw a black dress. Not just any black dress. The black dress. The one I had bought Paige for Christmas 3 months ago from a boutique in Carytown. The one she had tried on in the bedroom and twirled in and said, "I'm saving this for something special." She was wearing it tonight at Bastion's on our anniversary, the anniversary she was too busy to celebrate with me. She was sitting across from a man, silver-haired, tanned, tailored suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. He was leaning toward her, his hand resting on hers on the white tablecloth. There was champagne on the table, 2 glasses, the kind with the thin stems that you only see in places where people spend money like it's water. He said something. She laughed, the laugh I used to hear across the kitchen when I'd say something that caught her off guard. The unguarded one. The real one. She was giving that laugh to someone else. And then she leaned across the table and kissed him. Not a peck, not a quick social kiss. A real kiss. The kind of kiss that has history and intention and the promise of what comes after dinner. The kind of kiss I hadn't received from my wife in months. I couldn't breathe. The restaurant sounds, the clinking glasses, the murmured conversations, the soft jazz from the speakers in the ceiling, all of it collapsed into a single high-pitched tone, like the sound a wire makes right before it snaps. My hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. My vision narrowed until all I could see was that black dress, that silver hair, that kiss. I stood up. I was going to walk over there. I was going to grab that table and flip it. I was going to look at my wife on our 10th wedding anniversary and ask her how the deadline was going. I was going to make a scene that every person in that restaurant would remember for the rest of their lives. I made it 2 steps before a hand closed around my forearm. Sit down. The voice was low, female, calm in the way that certain people are calm. Not relaxed, but controlled, the calm of a person who has trained themselves to be steady in situations where other people break. I turned. A woman I had never seen before was standing beside my table. Late 40s, dark hair pulled back tight, wearing a navy blazer over a white blouse. No jewelry except a watch that looked functional rather than decorative. She had the posture of someone who had spent years standing in rooms where standing correctly mattered. Law enforcement, military, something that required the body to be a tool, not a decoration. Let go of my arm. Sit down first. Lady, I don't know who you are, but my wife is over there kissing another man, and I'm going to make the biggest mistake of your life. She didn't raise her voice, didn't tighten her grip, just looked at me with gray eyes that were absolutely, perfectly still. I know who that man is. I know who your wife is. I know what's happening at that table. And I need you to sit down because the real show is about to start. Something in her voice stopped me. Not the words, the certainty behind them. This woman wasn't guessing. She wasn't improvising. She knew something I didn't, and the knowing was solid enough that I could feel it, the way you can feel the difference between a wall that's load-bearing and one that's just a partition. I sat down. She sat across from me in Paige's chair, next to Paige's Lily's. My name is Vivian Hale. I'm a private investigator. She reached into her blazer and produced a business card, sliding it across the table with 2 fingers. I was hired 3 months ago by a woman named Marguerite Ryland. Does that name mean anything to you? No. It will. Marguerite Ryland is the second ex-wife of the man your wife is currently kissing. His name is Sterling Mercer. He's the CEO of Mercer Gaines Capital, where your wife works. And their affair is about to cost him $5 million. I stared at her. Across the restaurant, the waiter was bringing Paige and Sterling a second bottle of champagne. My anniversary lilies were wilting in the chair next to me, and a private investigator was telling me that the destruction of my marriage was a subplot in someone else's revenge story. I'm going to need you to explain that, I said. I will, but first I need something from you. What? Patience. 30 minutes. Don't approach them. Don't confront them. Don't let them know you're here. I have a colleague outside with a camera and another at the Jefferson Hotel, where Mr. Mercer has a standing reservation in room 412. If you blow this up now in this restaurant, you'll get a shouting match and a scene. If you wait, you'll get everything. Everything meaning what? Evidence. Leverage. The truth about your wife that goes far beyond the man she's kissing right now. She glanced at the bar. Order another glass of wine. Breathe. And let me tell you what I found. I ordered the wine. I breathed, and Vivian Hale told me a story that made the champagne across the restaurant taste like poison in my imagination. Sterling Mercer is 52 years old. He founded Mercer Gaines Capital in 2006 with family money, old Virginia money, the kind that comes with portraits in hallways and buildings with your name on them. He's worth approximately $40 million. He has been divorced twice. His first marriage ended in 2012, unremarkable, no children. His second marriage to my client, Marguerite Ryland, ended in 2021. Why did it end? Because Marguerite discovered that Sterling was having an affair with his executive assistant, a woman named Elise Corwin. I felt something shift in my chest. Executive assistant. Elise worked for Sterling for 4 years. The affair lasted approximately 2 of those years. When Marguerite found out, she hired an attorney who was very, very good. The divorce settlement was $8 million, but it included something unusual, a morality clause. What's a morality clause? A contractual provision stating that if Sterling engaged in another workplace affair within 5 years of the divorce, he would owe Marguerite an additional $5 million penalty. Is that enforceable? In Virginia, morality clauses in divorce settlements are enforceable if they're specific and agreed upon by both parties. Sterling's attorney advised him not to sign it. He signed it anyway because he was arrogant enough to believe he could control himself. She paused. He could not. So, Paige, your wife, is Sterling Mercer's current executive assistant. She started at Mercer Gaines in 2018. Based on my surveillance, the affair began approximately 14 months ago, in January 2023. 14 months. I thought about the last 14 months. The late nights, the work emergencies, the new clothes that appeared in the closet, expensive things that didn't match her salary, the distance in bed, the conversations that went nowhere, the feeling of sleeping next to a woman who was already somewhere else in her mind. 14 months of lies, and I had believed every one of them. There's more, Vivian said, and this is the part that matters to you directly. She reached into her blazer again and produced a folded piece of paper, a bank statement. She slid it across the table. During my investigation of Sterling, my forensic team discovered that your wife has been receiving payments beyond her salary, approximately $15,000 per month, deposited into a personal account at Virginia National Bank in Paige Sable's name only. I looked at the statement. Account number, balance, $211,847.33. Deposits listed monthly, each for $15,000 from an entity called Mercer Advisory LLC. What is Mercer Advisory LLC? A shell company registered to Sterling Mercer. It has no employees, no clients, no operations. Its sole purpose, as far as I can determine, is to funnel payments to your wife. $15,000 a month for 14 months, approximately $210,000 total. I set the bank statement down, picked up my wine and set it down without drinking. My hands were doing that thing again, the trembling, the loss of control that I had never experienced in 20 years of working with live wires and junction boxes and panels that could kill you if your hands weren't steady. She's been hiding $210,000 from me. Yes. While we're married. Yes. In Virginia, that's subject to equitable distribution. Half of that money is legally yours. But more importantly, the concealment of assets during a marriage is a serious matter in divorce proceedings. It destroys credibility. And in custody disputes, a parent who has been systematically deceiving their spouse for over a year is not a parent the court tends to favor. I looked across the restaurant. Paige was laughing again. Sterling was refilling her champagne. They looked happy. They looked like two people who had the world figured out, who had calculated every angle and covered every base and left nothing to chance. They hadn't calculated me sitting 2 tables away on our anniversary. And they hadn't calculated Vivian Hale. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Your client is Marguerite, the ex-wife. What do you get from helping me? Vivian looked at me directly. My job is to build a case that triggers the morality clause. Your wife is the evidence. Her relationship with Sterling is the trigger. The photographs, the hotel records, the financial trail, all of that proves Sterling violated the clause. Marguerite gets her $5 million. And me? You get the collateral benefit. Everything I've gathered about your wife, the affair timeline, the hidden account, the pattern of deception, is yours to use in your own divorce proceedings. I'm not your investigator, but the evidence doesn't care who uses it. Is that legal? I'm licensed. My methods are legal. My findings are documented and admissible, and I have no obligation to keep what I've discovered from the spouse of the woman I've been investigating. She paused. Mr. Sable, I was a detective for 14 years before I became a PI. I've seen a lot of marriages end. Most of them end messy, shouting matches, thrown dishes, scenes in restaurants exactly like this one. Those endings feel satisfying for about 10 minutes. Then they turn into regret. She nodded toward the corner table. What I'm offering you is the other kind of ending, the kind that's quiet, calculated, and devastating. The kind where you walk out of this restaurant tonight without saying a word, and 6 months from now, the woman who lied to you on your anniversary is sitting in a courtroom watching everything she built on your trust collapse around her. I sat there for a long time. The jazz played, the restaurant murmured. My wife drank champagne with the man who had paid her $210,000 to betray me. And I made a decision. Tell me what to do. Go home. Kiss your kids goodnight. Act normal. Tomorrow call an attorney. I'll send you my full case file, the photographs, the hotel records, the financial analysis. Your attorney will know what to do with it. And tonight they're going to leave this restaurant and go to that hotel? Yes. And my colleague will document every moment of it. Time-stamped photographs, video of them entering and exiting, credit card receipt for the room. By tomorrow morning, I'll have an evidence package that no judge in Virginia will ignore. I looked at the lilies in the chair. Stargazer lilies, the ones she'd carried at our wedding. I had bought them for a woman who didn't exist anymore. Maybe she'd never existed. Maybe the woman who promised me forever in that church in Churchill was already someone else. Someone I couldn't see because love is a blindfold we tie on ourselves. I stood up, left cash on the table for the wine and picked up the flowers. Mr. Sable, Vivian said. I turned. Happy anniversary. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't sarcastic. It was the quiet acknowledgement of a woman who had spent 14 years as a cop and 10 years as a PI watching people's lives get dismantled, and who knew that sometimes the only thing you can offer someone is the truth, even when the truth is a knife. I walked out of Bastion's at 9:07 p.m., through the main dining room, past the bar, past the hostess stand, and out the front door into the March night. I didn't look at the corner table. I didn't look at Paige. I didn't look at the black dress I'd bought her, or the champagne I hadn't paid for, or the man whose hand was on my wife's hand on the night that was supposed to be ours. I got in my truck, put the lilies on the passenger seat, started the engine and drove home. Ryland and Odette were asleep. The babysitter, a high school girl from down the street, was watching something on her phone in the living room. I paid her, thanked her, and locked the door behind her. Then I went upstairs and stood in the doorway of my children's room. Ryland was 7, sprawled across his bed the way 7-year-old boys sleep, every limb pointing a different direction like he'd been dropped from a height. His mouth was open. His baseball glove was on the nightstand because he'd been sleeping with it since I'd coached his first game in the fall. Odette was 4, curled up with her stuffed rabbit, her thumb hovering near her mouth, a habit she was trying to break, but kept returning to in her sleep when the conscious effort relaxed. Her hair was tangled. She'd need it brushed in the morning and she would fight it and I would be patient, and we would get through it the way we got through everything together. I stood there for 20 minutes watching my children breathe, thinking about the woman I had married and the man she was with and the $210,000 she had hidden from me and the 14 months of lies that I had mistaken for a marriage going through a rough patch. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. Something harder than tears had formed in my chest. Something forged in the 10 seconds between seeing the kiss and feeling Vivian's hand on my arm. Not rage, not grief, resolution. The cold, structural certainty that I was going to dismantle the lie my wife had built. Not with noise, not with a scene in a restaurant, but with the methodical precision of a man who spent his life wiring buildings so the lights stayed on. The lights were about to go out on Paige. Let me tell you who I am, because what Paige did to me only makes sense if you understand who she did it to. My name is Aldrich Sable. I was born in 1980 in Church Hill, Richmond, one of the oldest neighborhoods in Virginia. The kind of place where the houses lean and the porches sag and the people inside them are tougher than the architecture. My mother, Della, raised me and my two brothers alone. She was a postal worker, 31 years carrying mail through the streets of Church Hill, through summer heat and winter ice, and the occasional dog that thought her ankle looked like lunch. She made $38,000 a year at her peak. She never complained. She never called in sick. She never let us see her struggle, which meant she was always struggling. I became an electrician because electricity made sense to me in a way that school didn't. The logic of circuits, the predictability of current, the satisfaction of making something work that didn't work before. I got my journeyman's license at 23, my master's license at 27, and in 2009 at 29, I started Sable Electric with one van, a set of tools, and a $12,000 loan from a credit union in Church Hill that probably shouldn't have approved it but did because the loan officer knew my mother and figured any woman who carried mail for 30 years probably raised a son who paid his debts. She was right. I paid the loan back in 18 months. By 2024, Sable Electric had 8 employees, 2 service vans, contracts with 3 property management companies, and a reputation across Richmond for showing up on time, doing the work right and not charging for things we didn't do. Revenue. Approximately $110,000 for me after expenses and payroll. Not wealthy, not poor, just a man who built something honest and kept it running. I met Paige Langford in 2012 at a friend's barbecue in the Fan District. She was 29, working as an administrative assistant at a law firm, saving up for a certification program. I was 32, 3 years into building Sable Electric, wearing a polo shirt that had a small electrical burn near the collar because I'd come straight from a job site and didn't have time to change. She didn't care about the burn. She said it made me look like someone who actually worked for a living, which she found refreshing after spending her days surrounded by lawyers who thought physical labor was something that happened to other people. We dated for 2 years, married March 15, 2014, at St. Patrick's Church in Church Hill. Small ceremony, 70 guests, a reception at the VFW hall where Knox's cousin played guitar. My mother made the potato salad. Paige's parents drove up from Roanoke and seemed cautiously pleased that their daughter was marrying a man who owned a business, even if that business involved crawl spaces and junction boxes. For 8 years it was good. Not spectacular, real. The kind of marriage where you argue about the dishwasher and make up before bed and drive to your kid's soccer game on Saturday morning with coffee in a travel mug. And the quiet understanding that all of this, is what you signed up for. Ryland came in July 2016. Odette in September 2019. The house on Montrose Avenue, 3 bedrooms, needed rewiring when we bought it, which I did myself over 6 weekends because that's what electricians do. They fix what's broken even when it's theirs. Paige started at Mercer Gaines Capital in 2018. It was a step up from the law firm. Better pay, better title, benefits. She was excited. She talked about Sterling Mercer like he was a character in a novel. This larger-than-life figure who ran a $200 million fund and wore custom suits and had a corner office with a view of the James River. I was happy for her. I didn't notice that the admiration in her voice was slowly becoming something else. The distance started in late 2022. Gradual, the way distance always starts. She worked later, came home tired, was less interested in the small conversations that hold a marriage together, the "how was your day," the "what did the kids do," the "I saw this thing and thought of you." Those conversations got shorter, then less frequent, then stopped entirely. We still talked, we just didn't say anything. I thought it was the job. I thought it was stress. I thought it was the ordinary erosion that every marriage goes through in the middle years, when the romance fades and the routine sets in and you have to decide whether to fight for it or let it drift. I chose to fight. I planned the anniversary dinner. I bought the suit. I picked up the lilies. I made the reservation at Bastion's because Paige had mentioned once months ago that she'd heard it was romantic, and I had filed that information, the way I file everything, carefully for future use. She filed it too for a different dinner with a different man. The morning after the restaurant, I called Boone Taggart. Boone was 53, a divorce attorney and a former military JAG officer. His office was on Main Street in a building that had been a bank in the 1920s, which felt appropriate because divorce in Virginia is essentially a financial audit conducted under emotional duress. "Walk me through it," Boone said, pouring coffee from a pot that looked like it had been brewing since the Cold War. I walked him through it: the anniversary, the text, the restaurant, Vivian Hale, Sterling Mercer, the morality clause, the hidden account, the $210,000. Boone listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat down his coffee and said, "How do you feel?" "Like I've been wiring a house for 10 years and someone just told me the whole thing was on the wrong circuit." "That's about right." He opened a legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. Virginia is a fault-based divorce state. Adultery is grounds and you have professional-grade evidence. The hidden account is concealment of marital assets, which is going to destroy her credibility in equitable distribution. And the fact that the money came from her boss, the man she's sleeping with, structured through a shell company to avoid detection? That's not just deception, Aldrich. That's a conspiracy between your wife and her employer to defraud you. What about custody? A parent who has systematically lied to their spouse for 14 months, concealed $210,000, and conducted an affair with their boss is not a parent the court is going to view favorably. I'm going to pursue primary custody for you, and based on what you're telling me, I think we'll get it. What about Sterling? Sterling is Marguerite Ryland's problem. And based on the morality clause, he's about to have a very expensive one. But his involvement with your wife, the payments, the shell company, the hotel room, all of that becomes part of our case file. The judge is going to see the full picture. How long? 6 months, maybe less if she's smart enough to settle. And Aldrich? Yeah. You did the right thing last night, sitting there instead of walking over to that table. Most men would have blown it. You didn't. That patience is going to win you this case. I didn't feel patient. I felt like I was being electrocuted from the inside. That's what patience feels like when it matters, Boone said. Vivian delivered her evidence package to Boone's office the following week. It was, as she had promised, airtight. 47 photographs spanning 3 months, time-stamped entries and exits from the Jefferson Hotel, room 412, on 11 separate occasions, credit card receipts, the hidden bank account statements, text messages between Paige and Sterling obtained through legal discovery, and the documentation of Elise Corwin, the previous executive assistant, Sterling's pattern, established and repeatable. Boone filed for divorce on April 3, 2024. Paige was served at her office at Mercer Gaines Capital, in front of Sterling Mercer's corner office with the view of the James River. That evening she came home in tears. "Aldrich, what is this? Why are you doing this?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten 10 years of dinners, the same table where Ryland did his homework and Odette drew pictures of horses. I had a glass of water in front of me. Nothing else, no documents, no evidence, no props. Just me and the truth and the quiet certainty that I had built my case the same way I built everything else. Carefully, correctly, with the wiring hidden behind the walls where it belonged. You know why? Is this because I've been working late? Aldrich, I told you the job is demanding. Paige, stop. She stopped. I was at Bastion's on our anniversary. I saw you. The color drained from her face the way current drains from a circuit when you kill the breaker all at once. Complete. You were. I made a reservation for us for our 10th anniversary, and I sat 2 tables away and watched you kiss Sterling Mercer while the text you sent me about being stuck at work was still on my phone. She sat down, not in a chair but on the floor, like her legs had stopped receiving signals from her brain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. 14 months. $210,000 in a hidden account from a shell company your boss created to pay you. 11 visits to room 412 at the Jefferson Hotel. 47 photographs, text messages, credit card receipts. I took a sip of water. I know everything, Paige. Not because I spied on you but because someone else was already watching Sterling and they found you in the frame. Oh, who was watching? That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's over. The marriage, the lies, the hidden money, all of it. She was crying now, the real crying, not the performance. The crying of a person who has been running a con for 14 months and has just hit the wall at full speed. The kids, Aldrich, please, don't take the kids. I'm not taking anything that isn't mine, but I'm not giving up anything that is. I'll end it with Sterling. I'll end it tonight. We can go to counseling. We can. You wore the dress I bought you for Christmas to dinner with another man on our anniversary. You sent me a text with heart emojis while you were sitting across from him. You hid $210,000 from me in an account I didn't know existed. I set down the glass. Counseling doesn't fix that, Paige. Nothing fixes that. She stayed on the floor for a long time. I left the kitchen, went upstairs and checked on the kids, closing their door so they wouldn't hear their mother crying. That was the last real conversation of my marriage. The divorce took 5 months. Boone was methodical, relentless. The kind of attorney who built cases the way I built wiring. Every connection tight, every junction secure, nothing left to chance. Paige's attorney tried to fight. He argued that the hidden account was Paige's personal savings and not subject to disclosure. Boone presented the Mercer Advisory LLC records showing the payments originated from Sterling's shell company. The judge was not impressed with the personal savings argument. He argued that the affair was not relevant to custody. Boone presented the pattern, 14 months of systematic deception, the concealed account, the text message sent from the restaurant on the anniversary night. The judge noted that a parent who demonstrated a sustained capacity for deception was relevant to evaluating custodial fitness. The hidden account, $211,847.33, was frozen and subject to equitable distribution. Paige lost primary custody. I was awarded the children during the school week. Paige received alternating weekends. The house on Montrose Avenue was awarded to me as the primary residence for Ryland and Odette. Sterling Mercer's reckoning came separately but simultaneously. Marguerite Ryland's attorney filed to enforce the morality clause in April 2024. Sterling's attorneys fought it for 3 months. In July, a judge ruled the clause enforceable. Sterling owed Marguerite $5 million. The fallout was immediate. 3 major clients pulled their money from Mercer Gaines Capital when the affair pattern became public knowledge in Richmond's business community. Sterling's fund, which had been managing approximately $200 million, dropped to $140 million in 6 months. He didn't go broke. Men like Sterling Mercer never go broke. But he went from being a man who was respected in Richmond to a man who was tolerated, which, for someone whose entire identity was built on status, was a kind of death. Paige was fired from Mercer Gaines. Not for the affair, that would have been an employment lawsuit waiting to happen, but for restructuring. The kind of restructuring that happens when a CEO needs to cut the person who reminds everyone of his worst decision. She received no severance, no reference, and the NDA she signed on her way out ensured she could never discuss the details of her employment publicly. Vivian Hale sent me a final report after Marguerite's case was resolved. Professional, thorough, no flourishes. At the bottom, she had handwritten a note. The patience paid off. I hope the next chapter is better than the last. She was right. It is. A year has passed. It's March 2025. The anniversary just went by, March 15th. I didn't go to Bastion's. I didn't buy lilies. I took Ryland and Odette to a pizza place on Broad Street, and we ate pepperoni slices and played the claw machine in the corner until Odette won a stuffed penguin that she named Electric, because she said it looked like it had been surprised, which is apparently what electricity looks like to a 5-year-old. I'm still running Sable Electric. Business is steady. We picked up 2 new contracts this year. I hired a 9th employee, a young apprentice from Church Hill named Darius, who reminds me of myself at 22. All ambition and no polish, showing up early with his tools organized and his questions ready. Knox comes by on Fridays with beer and unsolicited opinions about everything from my truck's alignment to my dating life, which is non-existent. I'm not ready. The wiring in my personal life needs a full inspection before I connect anything new. My mother, Della, is 69. She retired from the post office last year. She comes over twice a week to help with the kids, which means she takes over entirely, and I stand in my own kitchen like a guest while she makes dinner and gives Ryland batting tips and braids Odette's hair, and does everything with the fierce, quiet competence of a woman who has been showing up for 69 years and has no intention of stopping. You did the right thing, baby, she told me last month. We were on the porch. The kids were asleep. She was drinking tea, I was drinking the last of Knox's beer. Which part? All of it. Not making a scene, not shouting, not giving that woman the satisfaction of watching you fall apart in public. She looked at me. You know who taught you that? You. Me and the United States Postal Service. Rain, snow, sleet, hail, and cheating spouses, you just keep delivering. Ryland is 8 now. He's in 3rd grade playing baseball, developing a curveball that his coach says is promising and I say is Hold off on the curveball until you're 12 or you'll destroy your elbow. He asks about his mother. I tell him the truth in age-appropriate doses. Mommy and Daddy aren't together anymore, but Mommy loves you and you'll see her every other weekend. Odette is 5. She started kindergarten in September. She comes home with art projects and stories about her new best friend, a girl named Rosario. And she still fights me on the hairbrushing every morning, and I'm still patient and we still get through it. They are the reason I sat down in that restaurant. They are the reason I didn't walk across that dining room and grab Sterling Mercer by his tailored lapels and make a scene that would have given Paige's attorney ammunition for a decade. They are the reason I listened to a stranger who told me to wait, and they are the reason the waiting was worth it. I'm in my truck right now, driving to a job site in Henrico County. Ryland is in the passenger seat because it's a teacher workday and I'm letting him ride along. He's got his baseball glove on his lap, and he's asking me questions about wiring that I answer with the patience of a man who knows that teaching is just another form of building. Dad, how do you know which wire goes where? You read the blueprints. You follow the code. And when the blueprints don't match reality, which happens more than you'd think, you use your experience and your judgment. What if you get it wrong? Then the lights don't come on. Or worse, something shorts out and you've got a problem. So you don't get it wrong. But what if you do? Then you find the mistake. You trace the circuit. You fix it and you make sure it doesn't happen again. He thought about that for a while, turning his glove over in his hands. Is that what happened with you and Mom? A wrong wire? I looked at my son, 8 years old, too young for the truth, too smart for a lie. Something like that, buddy. But the house is rewired now and the lights are on. He nodded, seemed satisfied, and went back to his glove. I turned onto the highway. The morning sun was coming through the windshield, warm and gold, the kind of light that makes Richmond look like it was designed to be beautiful. My truck smelled like coffee and electrical tape and the particular optimism of a man who has work to do and someone to do it for. A year ago, I was sitting in a restaurant watching my wife kiss another man on our anniversary. I was 2 steps from destroying everything, making a scene, losing my leverage, giving Paige the ammunition she needed to paint me as the unstable one. A stranger grabbed my arm and said, "Stay calm. The real show's about to start." I stayed calm. The show started. And when it was over, the lights went out for everyone who had been operating in the dark. But mine stayed on. They always do. Now, I want to ask you something. What would you do if you were sitting 2 tables away from your spouse on your wedding anniversary watching them kiss someone else? Would you confront them? Would you flip the table and make a scene that every person in that restaurant would remember? Or would you sit down, listen to the stranger, and let patience do what anger never could? And here's the deeper question. Have you ever discovered a betrayal so complete that it changed the way you see the person you loved most? Not just the affair, not just the lie, the whole architecture of the deception. The hidden money, the rehearsed excuses, the text messages with heart emojis sent from the table where they were sitting with someone else. Have you lived through that? And how did you survive? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this story reached into your chest and grabbed something, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, especially anyone who's sitting in a restaurant right now, figuratively or literally, watching something they don't want to see and wondering what to do next. Stay calm. The real show's about to start. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. I'll see you in the next one.